Well, after doing my first video, realising that the video and the audio is pretty poor, I thought I'd do another one using the same platform. I'm not so bothered about the quality. I'm just thankful that after quite a few attempts, I've actually managed to create a video and upload it. I did a few before, and quite honest, I spent 15 minutes talking, and the video fails, and it's quite disappointing. So anyway, I thought I would just. The other video was really just sort of a proof of concept, to sort of show how the game's being made. I just wanted to do another video just to talk about games in general and Warblog, how it sort of fits in. And essentially, it's a relatively new game. Well, it is new. Started it about 2 or 3 years ago. Not in its current format. I actually created an SVG map of the world. I wanted to basically create a war game that was based on modern warfare. I thought there's something that's sort of missing, and I had no idea what I wanted to achieve. Just something that you could go in, you could think, oh, hang on, what's happening in Africa? What's actually happening in Sudan or Libya or Zimbabwe, or what's their historic background, regards to things like conflict. So you could then, basically, I only did one country. I did Somalia. So you could click the SVG map, go into Somalia, and it was pretty poor. And actually, to be quite honest, I spent a long time just sort of leaving it as it was, and in the back of my mind I thought, I'll do something with hexes, just something with hexes. And so anyway, then I just plonked this together, and it's suddenly become something that I'm incredibly excited about. So essentially, it's all about old school type hex type chip board game, tabletop maps type games, but at the same time trying to keep it incredibly simple. So there's not going to be any sort of extra boxes for checking this, for checking that. So although I'd like to do as many features as I can, the priority is to keep it very simple. So things like supply, yes, I could possibly get into supply. I could possibly put in leadership. These are things that I could do in the future, but at the moment they're not actually that critical. I'm trying to do things that are not that long, 10 days, 2 weeks. You don't really need to worry about supply in those sorts of short-term scenarios. If it was World War II, then Napoleonics, then maybe, but for many of these, it's not really an issue. But at the stage we're at the moment, I've actually done quite a few games, and they're quite easy to do. The problem is actually making them balanced. So that's something that requires playing them, and to be quite honest, something I'm not actually very good at in the short term. In the long term, the game's all designed to be immediately updatable. So if I actually say come into one of these games, I think, oh, hang on, that's wrong, I can update it. That's one of the interesting things. I mean, the Cutic Carnival campaign is something that is going to be updated at some point, because I've been reading more about the 3-staged operations, and to be quite honest, in comparison to some of the other maps, it's not particularly convincing. Operation Marshall, which is set in Vietnam, is probably the worst game that I've done so far, because I think the insects are all in the wrong places. Some of them are a bit sort of just really not based on anything historic, just plonking a bunch of forces together. For example, this Yemen conflict really is just based on what the forces had. I don't know what was there, I don't know what the objectives were. They were marching down towards Rada, Nama, wherever they're heading. So I don't know which game to play really. I'm sort of trying to sort of take it from the top, but seeing as we're here, I'll just go to Araka. This is actually an early game. Now, once you're into the game, you just click play now because you're logged in. So you click play now. Now, I've sort of done this before, so I'm not really going to bother too much with the intricacies of the movement and things like that. There is a bit of a bug on the first turn. It takes about 3 turns to get past the first turn, which is sort of 2 stages. This is an extra stage, but that's just a little bit of a bug. Not to worry too much. But essentially, just to get back on sort of the general nature of the conversation, sort of the video, what I'm kind of angling at here, I think basically these are the sort of games that you either like or you don't like. I'm not really expecting anyone to suddenly become converted. But if you're like me, I mean, I avoided the Xbox and the PlayStation, well, forever. Until about 6 months ago when I actually thought, I've always wanted one, and I bought a second-hand one on eBay, and to be quite honest, it probably wasn't that cheap at the end of the day because I bought about 50 games, and thought, right, I'm going to really have a go at this, and it's so disappointing. Modern Warfare, it's all about sort of squad level action, and there's nothing strategic. I got the game Civilization, and even that is just so limited and so so boring. Everything's so abstract. There's no historical context to any of the modern conflict that you can find, especially in these games. And all like political propaganda to me, psyops working together as teams to defeat common enemies. But there's no reality in a lot of that. These games actually based on things that are actually happening, which means that you're not really sort of, the conflict is only one part of it. It's looking at the historical context and, giving you a platform to sort of understand that. Now, I played Hex Empires and a bunch of other silly little games like that, just, time to time. And I quite enjoy that, but it's so puerile. You don't do anything. You just go through the mechanics of it, and it's quite enjoyable, but it doesn't leave you any wiser, and it doesn't leave you any better informed, whereas these games give you a little clearer idea of what's happening in the world, and I think that's something that is fairly key. But one other thing that is sort of I've become sort of quite aware of, and that's basically, I mean, I grew up, say, in the 80s, and when I was a teenager, and etc. etc. Don't give age away too much, but basically back then, the Second World War was actually prehistoric back then. But in the 80s, I mean, it was only 35 years after the end of the First World War. Now, if you look at now, date 2016, 35 years ago is 1980. I mean, pretty much the difference between when I grew up and the Second World War was the same difference as today and the Falklands War. Now, I don't see the Falklands as being prehistoric. It seems like it was a fairly modern encounter. And, I sort of, I think that a lot of people in sort of, not so much modern gaming, but I think basically a lot of people have forgotten the period between 45 and now. It's not historic, because it's not the Napoleonics, because it's not the First World War. It's not actually the Second World War. It seems to be quite irrelevant and of no interest to anyone. And I think that although a lot of people have done quite a few games that are fairly good, my own evolution has come through from I think it's a GDW war game, basically the Third World War series. I had all the 4 volumes, so you get Europe, you get Falklands, and then you get the Middle East, and we get Scandinavia, and I had two massive boards and I put them all together. I just love those little sort of those sort of chip type encounters, and it was all very modern, and that was back in the 80s, and it was actually fun. But you just can't get that these days. The mainstream focus is on squad level action without any historic context. So what I'm trying to do here is just create little things that, in contrast to the larger, more traditional, hardcore hex-based, war games, they are easy to digest and quick to play. I think that's sort of something that is fairly important in these games because basically you can spend a lot of time playing them and it's sort of lost time. Now, with regards to they're not actually that simple. Basically, they're designed to be quick and easy to play. So, in the amount of time you could play, for example, Hex Wars, Hex Empires, which I play from time to time, unfortunately, because it is a waste of time. But I enjoy it. So, but you could play one of these games, and what I'm doing here, really, I've just picked up a random game, and the whole idea really is, yes, you can work out the strategy of how you would do this or how you would do that, but what I'm also trying to sort of build up is a sort of a platform that allows you to sort of analyse what I call the social political factors as well. Now, there's no factors for social political factors, but this whole battle, which is for Araka, which whenever it was, is actually sort of well known because it had the 12th, whatever that is, the 12th division, the 17th, this is 17th division, which is actually quite a large unit. They even had, you can't see them here, they even had aircraft. Now, the thing is, as soon as the ISIS units approached, the historically, let's get on to the Syrian turn. The Syrian, for some reason, the Syrian aircraft is not there, so I don't know why that is. I'll have to, maybe it's possibly a bit of a bug. But anyway, historically, they ran away. And when you start to sort of understand the social political things, it does actually change. The whole idea of a board game. I'm not trying to create a board game where you sit down and say, I have got to win this game. And what I'm just going to do here is just demonstrate that. I mean, it might seem so basic, but you can't cross rivers, obviously, but that's sort of easier said than done. Obviously run out of movement. So, but basically, as you can see here, I'm retreating with the Syrian units, and whilst that is the gameplay here. So the whole idea is, you might pick this up and you go through the mechanisms of that, and you sort of realise that, well, they could quite easily have defended. I mean, they're getting 3 factors in the city of Raqqa. This is light urban, this is dense urban. They could have really, held on to this city, but also caused a lot of damage to it in the process. So basically, I'm just really trying to sort of give you just a bit of an insight into the idea behind these games. Still not got they probably arrived later. The Air Force actually arrived after the 17th Division had moved out. So I'm nearly at the end of the 15 minutes there. I don't feel like I've actually even said anything, but hopefully you've seen some movement and you might have an interest been playing Warblog, www.warblog.co.uk, and you can play all these games.